With yet another anime original episode, now it's once again time to go through the anime episode directly without having this whole spiel in front of that, where we talk about what happened at the same time in the game story, although maybe I'll have to do that at some point to get over the stuff it seems like we're skipping. But now let's go through the episode and see what my eyes have seen, all the juicy little details that are here and there, the deets on stuff that you can just find if you have game story knowledge and are willing to dig a little bit deeper. So we start out with Uriachi and Kurue in the Manin Sakura rumor where they just left off from the last episode. And then a little voice comes in, and the voice talks to them about how she'll be waiting. And that voice is, of course, Sakurako. Sakurako is in this episode, even if it's just the voice. I was so hoping we'd actually get to see her, like animated, but no, we just get her voice. So maybe, hopefully, at some point in the future, when they get back to Sakurako, we get to actually see her and not just hear her voice. So afterwards, they then get back to Mikasuki Villa. By the way, the opening that it played was a little bit different. It had like Yachio in some places where she wasn't before, and it had Kuro in some places where it wasn't before, but nothing super special. It's just some small little details here and there. So yeah, they go back to Mikasuki Villa where they talk about how Tsuruno, Felicia, and Sana are still gone, which means that we're basically now at the beginning of Chapter 7. I already talked about Chapter 7 in like two episodes ago, so you probably already have a good understanding of what actually happened in those episodes where they were trying to find these three for a really long time without finding anything. So now we're basically at that point. However, because we have a black feather with us, Kurue, we're actually able to go to the Magia's HQ immediately. And not just that, we also have information about Nemu. So they talk about how Nemu made the rumors, about how she is currently not looking too great, about how she is potentially in the process of dying, and how she remembers Iroha, but Toka doesn't. That's very interesting. Like, a lot of very interesting things here. First off, the fact that she made the rumors and is currently dying is something that was revealed a while later in the story. I think it was like end of chapter 7 that it was revealed that she made the rumors, I think, or even in chapter 8. And then I think it was like in chapter 9 or 10 that it was revealed that she was dying, or maybe it was even in like side stories. I don't even remember correctly. And then the thing about her remembering Iroha, that's weird because Nemu in the game story also doesn't remember Iroha. Like, no one remembers Iroha from that group. Like, neither Toka nor Nemu do remember her. So it's kind of interesting that they went with the way of now actually Nemu does remember her, but Toka doesn't. Maybe Toka is lying and she actually does remember her. But I do feel like there's going to be some changes made to the inciting incident. So that's the inciting incident at the beginning of the story chronologically, where Ui, Toka, and Nemu, they both three make their wish and shit goes bad. It's possible that this incident is going to be very different from the way it was in the game, and that maybe somehow explains why Nemu was able to keep those memories along and still remember Iroha. But we will have to get to that point and then see what happens. Now, the group of them, they go out and they try and find an entrance to Magia's HQ. They go to, interesting enough, the train station that we saw in the very first episode. That's exactly the same spot. We've already seen those flowers. And they try to go there. However, while they go there, we also see this little hint from the news broadcast that Walpurgisnacht is coming soon. And yes, once again, that is how I pronounce it. Walpurgisnacht is coming soon with this little typhoon. We also got hints like that in the game, but they happen way later. I think the first hint that we get is at the very, very end of chapter 9, like the last few lines in the entire chapter, is a news broadcast that a typhoon is coming. And currently we're in like towards the end of chapter 7, maybe. It's hard to say where exactly we are because we're anime original, but chronologically wise, maybe we're somehow around the same time as chapter 7. So once again, we're getting that way sooner. Maybe we even skip to chapter 9, like chronologically at this point, so that's interesting. Then when they get to the entrance to the Magia's HQ, or where it currently is rather, the Amane sisters, the Nees arrive and they're surprised. They didn't expect to see this, so there's like, and a fight breaks out with Yachio immediately jumping on the Nees. And the interesting bit is that I think I brought this up earlier in an earlier episode where I talked about, well, when Yachio was first fighting against the Nees when they were doppling, is there something that happened is that Yachio broke Tsukuyo's legs to like incapacitate her. And people were sad that it didn't happen. I was also sad that it didn't happen. However, now that Yachio is fighting the Nees again, could she break their legs? I mean, Yachio is known as the leg breaker, so maybe we we can actually get to. I would love to see that. I'm out for blood. I'm out for blood on this. The Nays don't deserve it. Okay, don't get me wrong. The Nays they're good people. They don't deserve their legs broken. But I still want to fucking see it because I think that's funny. One thing to note though is the Nays, they use these cubes once again to summon witches. Something that I don't think exactly happens in the game, but there are witches in these cubes that Alina has with her, and I think that just other people have it as well, that they can just summon witches with. It also shows, like, on screen this Alina grave scribble when the witches get summoned, and these witches in particular are called Durba, which are actually fought, I think, in chapter 8 or 9, so they're also some of the later witches in the game. So once again, lining it up with the same enemies that you would fight at a similar point in the story in the game. Even though, like I said, it's all anime original, so I guess you have to sort of like try and draw parallel to where this could be in the game story. In the meantime, though, Iroha and Kurohe, they reach the bottom of Hotel Fainthope. We see a whole bunch of books, and some of these books have the Magia's code written on it. There is actually a Magia's code in the game, like not one that you can read, but I think it's being talked about in Nemu's main Magical Girl story, where they quickly talk about it, and I think they even give a white feather an award for being a particularly very good noodle, a particularly very good white feather. Give them an award. That white feather then dies, which is sad, but, you know, that's just Nemu's Magical Girl story, because Nemu is one of the few characters in Magia Record that the writers kind of keep bashing and keep pushing down onto God and stomping on her really hard. I don't know why the writers hate Nemu so much, but Nemu gets the short end of the stick all the time. Same with Sana. Sana keeps getting the short end of the stick all the goddamn time. So yeah, I guess Sana and Nemu, they're in the same book club in regards to that. One thing to note as well, the train that they're riding, I think, looks very similar, if not the exact same, as that weird little machine that Toka built in an earlier episode in one of the flashbacks, while she was talking about a Perpetuo Mobile. Now, the train itself was not supposed to be a Perpetuo Mobile, because some people were like, there's no way a little kid built a Perpetuo Mobile, right? Well, no, she didn't. Of course she didn't. The whole point of Toka is that she's super smart, but at the same time, she just doesn't know where her smartness fucking ends. She's always talking like 10,000 steps ahead of where she currently is, because she has a giant ego problem. And that's basically what that whole scene is trying to show you guys. Like, hey, she built a little machine, like a little steam train, and she thinks, oh yeah, I can build a little steam train. That means I can build a Perpetual Mobile because I'm Toka. Yeah, we don't like Toka. At least I don't. Most people don't like Toka, but yeah, that's what that being was supposed to mean. Moving on though, we get a very important scene between Iroha and Kurohe where the two actually get to talk a little bit, because I feel like something that we were missing in season 1, especially with Kurohe, was just scenes where people talk to each other. And I know I don't want to put it on season 1 as like, oh, that was the fault of the showrunners in season 1, that there weren't more scenes of just characters talking to each other and showing their characters to each other. Because season 1 was having a breakneck pace to finish 6 chapters in 12 episodes, which, frankly, why would you do that? Or was it like 13 episodes? But why would you do that? Way too little episodes for way too much content. So yeah, they just didn't have the time. Now, they're actually making time, because we're anime original. When we're anime original, we can just make the time that we need. So they give us some time for Iroha and Kurohe to talk about stuff. Kurohe talks about why she became a black feather, like, oh, she's too weak. And Iroha is like, oh, you don't have to be weak, you have friends, right? And Kurohe is like, but what if everyone is weak? What if everyone is so weak that if you're alone for just a little bit and you have to fight a witch and the witch is too strong, that you might just die? I mean, it happens in Nemu's Magical Girl story, like Nemu and a white feather together, 2-on-1, fight a witch, and the white feather still dies, because the witch was not just that strong, and also because Nemu probably was jobbing a little bit. Maybe she was, oh my god, was she sandbagging? I hope she wasn't. Anyway, the point is, and I've made this point in other videos as well. Like I said, I really should have made that video about the black feathers, about how black feathers are just so goddamn weak. They have to join Magus, they have to band together, because otherwise they might just be found dead in the streets someday. So don't pull the blame on the feathers. It's just they had no other choice at that point. And Kurohe basically is like that as well. And Iroha comes in and says, yeah, but friends. Which doesn't help Kurohe, or at least it didn't help Kurohe back then, but now it does, because here's the thing, when you have strong friends, I guess then friendship does work, right? And I guess that's the message here. Friendship wins, but only if your friends are really strong, right? So now that they have been riding this train, they get to the end of that, they bump into Rena and Kaede, Rena and Kaede, they're trying to flee. And by the way, some people have pointed out, what does it mean when the Magus symbol turns black, right? Like, Kuroe's Magus symbol turned black and Rena's Magus symbol turned black. It just means they got kicked out of Magus. And they can't open the exit portal anymore, which is why it was kind of important, because they were asking like, hey, is there an exit portal back there? And they were like, oh no, we found the Dines, and they closed the portal. And Dino was like, oh no, they closed the portal, shit, we have to go somewhere else now. So yeah, once that thing turns black, you can't open a portal anymore because you've basically been kicked out. That's also why Kuroe tries to hide the Magus insignia really quickly when it turns black, to not show Iroha that they're basically trapped in the hotel now, or at the bottom of the hotel, or wherever they are currently in relation to the rest of the hotel. So yeah, they're trying to flee. Rena's trying to flee because Kaede is not looking too great. Kaede probably just wants to stick around and probably wants to go to Mitama to coordinator. Mitama is the only coordinator in town, because I don't think Livia and the others are there yet. However, Rena doesn't like that because Rena doesn't trust Mitama. Why would Rena not trust Mitama? Maybe we'll find that out later in this episode. But Kaede was like, oh man, I need help. Iroha's like, man, Kaede needs help. But Rita's like, no, I'm not letting a filthy doctor anywhere near my girlfriend. She's an anti-vaxxer, is she? Oh my god, no. So they're trying to flee, and there's some runes at the bottom of the screen. By the way, if you see the stuff at the bottom, at the top right, I've mirrored the screenshots because of copyright stuff. Anyway, there are some runes that show up, and I've looked at the Reddit. On the Magia record Reddit, there has been a thread about this where I've read through the posts, and people have been figuring out what these runes mean. And the runes read out a Japanese sentence, 2 Japanese sentences. The first one is unme wa reru no saki ni aru, and the second one is watashi tachi wa hakobareru koto shika dekinai. Okay. Forgive my pronunciation, but the first sentence basically means destiny awaits at the end of the rails, because they're walking on rails, and it's like, oh, destiny is on rails. Ooh. And the second sentence means all we can do is be carried along, which feels like basically just driving home how these black feathers, or just magical girls in general, are basically just on a one-way train to their fate. Basically, it's basically like that. Symbolism, part of symbolism. Then we also get this weird cut-in scene that lasts for like a few seconds. Not very long, okay, for like a minute. Where we see Sayaka, Homura, and Madoka, they're investigating some advertisements left by the Magus, which I think is very interesting little bit of world building right here, because once again, this was not something that was in the game, where they were actually like trying to show us how do Magus actually get new recruits. Well, one of the ways Magus got new recruits is actually in the game, whenever people doppled, and they went to Mitama, and it was like, Mitama, I had this weird thing happening to me. Then Mitama would actually basically sell them out to Magus and be like, hey Magus, I found another recruit for you guys, which was a shady thing to do, and Mitama did have to pay the price for it. She didn't die or anything, but she just, I mean, later on she then went and said, okay, since I helped the Magus, I'm gonna help you guys and help the protagonists, and made everything good again. Anyway, the point is, that was one of the ways people were being recruited. Another way was Mifuyu and her connections, because Mifuyu was one of the most popular, still is one of the most popular magic girls in all of Kamehama. Maybe because she's mature and got, mature parts to her, I don't know. But she's definitely very well liked by other girls around Kamehama, and she shows she went around and like recruited girls. That's like the other main way, probably the main way actually, that people got recruited into Magus. However, of course, it's a bit weird how they were able to get hundreds upon hundreds of magic girls just via Mifuyu. So here they're showing like, hey, they have these like little posters they've hung around Kamehama, but you can only read the contents of the posters if you use like magic, right? They're like magically hidden from sight, and you have to use some magic to read the posters, and there's like advertisements for joining Magus. Interesting enough. Okay. However, the 3 of them also note that they're being avoided for some reason. For some reason, the Wings of Magus are not approaching them, even though they're trying to get approached by them, which is weird. Also, Kyoko isn't there, and I think that it will probably actually happen that Kyoko is going to infiltrate the Wings of Magus, probably already has, and that's why we don't see her, because that happens in the game, that she infiltrated Wings of Magus, as I've shown you in an earlier video. But it also could not happen. I don't know. The important thing is, I think the reason why they're being avoided is probably because Mami has given the order that they are not to be approached. that they are not to be like dragged into this whole thing, and that hopefully all this entire conflict is hopefully going to be like done, resolved, Material Girl saved, everything is fine before those three actually get anywhere close to Mommy. Probably something like that, like keep them safe. Also interesting enough, there's this poster, like multiple posters, for an art gallery, an art exhibition for the artist Alina Gray. So Alina has an art exhibition because of course she does. But the image from the art exhibition is from the very first opening, interesting enough. But also, more importantly, it shows the name of that art exhibition. It's called Todestrieb. It's a German word, which is why I can pronounce it. Yay. Todestrieb basically means an urge or a drive to death, or an urge to die, a drive to die, something like that. And basically what it means is that it's similar to Call of the Void, where there's this idea that humanity consciously or subconsciously takes actions that drive them to their own death. Somewhat, like I said, some of that is consciously, where you take actions where you know it's really terrible for you, it's going to lead to your doom, but you do it anyway because fuck it. And there's something that also was brought up in Holy Alina's Magical Girl Stories. And Holy Alina's Magical Girl Story, at the very end of that, I think I have footage on this, probably shows on screen right now, that at the very end of that Holy Alina's Magical Girl Story, she figures out that all these people, all of humanity, has this urge to drive themselves to their own death, and she sort of thinks that, hey man, that's such a beautiful thing, I'm gonna make art all about humans' self-destructive tendencies, because she herself also has very many self-destructive tendencies, so she can relate to that. And that's probably what this whole art exhibition is about, because in the Holy Alina's MSS, you also has another art exhibition in that MSS, that is also an art exhibition about self-destructive behavior, which was actually a really cool thing. I'm not going to go too deep into that because that's a bit too much. Anyway, after all of that, we then see the group getting to a witch factory, which was set up by Magius and is being maintained by Alina. We're not saying it, but in the game we know that Alina is sort of overseeing the factory, like the farming of the witches rather. But yeah, basically Magius has given their okay to do this sort of thing. And the witches that we see, I'm going to go through some of the witches that we can identify. So first off, that's Candy, very easily identifiable. There's Stacy, very easily identifiable. There's another witch which has a really weird animalistic face, but it's got these hands that are like behind the head, right? The hands. And there's one witch that we know that has these jazz hands on the head, which is called Lucy. It's an Arc 2 witch, so it's one of the later witches. At least I think it's an Arc 2 witch. So it's one of the later witches. But it's possible this is an alternate design for Lucy because it has these hands. But it's also possible that it's not supposed to be Lucy and it just has jazz hands. There's also two more witches that are definitely unknown that we definitely don't really know anything about. They're just random witches that they've drawn in to fill some space. And then we also see a Rebecca at the end of that as well. Now, while they're walking through that, they get detected by a sentry, and this sentry is a rumor of the working bear, which is a minion, basically. It's not actually a boss, even though it looks like it was strong like a boss. No, this is actually just a normal, small minion. We've actually seen multiple of these earlier in the episode as well, in some jars. So this is just a small enemy. It's actually not that small, but like a weak enemy that answers to a bigger bear general that is way more strong. And then on top of that, you have the mother bear tree. It's a tree of bears that is like the actual core of this specific Uwasa, because there's one Uwasa that just protects the entirety of Magus HQ, the bear tree, which has like bear generals and then the working bears. And one of these working bears, these small ones, is what we fight right here. The bear tree is insanely fucking powerful and took like 10 magical girls to take down, and even then they weren't actually able to do it. Right, so 10 Mingoka, including the Puella Magi Holy Quintet, they were all fighting this thing together in the game story. They couldn't do it. And then Mifuyu sacrificed herself to destroy it. Because somehow 10 people can't do it, but one person sacrificing themselves can't do it. And not just that, Mifuyu didn't actually die, she survived anyway, so the power levels are a bit weird. All of that aside, we're finding one of those bear things, and in the middle of all of that, the interesting bit is that Kurue is about to doppel, and this is one of the coolest shots I've seen. These 3 or 4 seconds of Kurue almost doppling looks really cool, but it goes by so fast that you can't really take it in, sadly. however, stops her. They do a connect. They fire off an explosive thing. Like, it's one of Kuro's weapons, but as like an explosive version, basically. At the thing, it dies immediately. Awesome. Collects are powerful. They have a game moment. However, Kaede is not looking too great, and she doubles. And she doesn't just double, she then succumbs to the double syndrome. Now, the double syndrome is, as I mentioned in the other video as well, something completely anime original. This is a plot point. Double syndrome does not exist in the game anywhere, not even hinted at, not even happening off screen. No, literally never ever is even a thing in the entire universe of the game's story. It's that anime original, which is absolutely absurd. Because I've told you guys before how in the game story, doubles don't really have a drawback to them. Like, yeah, Yachio says, oh, doubles are bad. Doubles can do bad things to you. And Iroha then also goes, oh yeah, I guess doubles are bad. I guess doubles must be really bad, right? And that's basically all we get. Some people say they are bad without anything that would make them actually think that, yeah, doubles really are bad. They just assume, I guess, that doubles are bad, but don't really go into detail. There's many different enemies that keep doubling all the time, like the Nays. They double actually multiple times in the game story and are always totally fine. Nothing happens to them ever, apart from having their legs broken. But that's Yachio, right? That's just Yachio. That's a force of nature. And also Alina doubles every single goddamn time you fight her. Holy Mummy also keeps doubling all the time, if you let her, or you just one-shot her on turn 1 like I do. But yeah, they keep doubling all the time, and nothing bad ever happens to them. So the main characters, they keep saying doubles are bad, but the enemies, they keep doubling, nothing bad ever happens to them. So it kind of rings really hollow. Like I said, you have the archive as well. I also said in other videos where in the archive it says, oh, this double might screw your brain up really hard if you use it too much. This double might make you blind if you use it too much. This double will randomly kill your friends if you use it too much. Like in the archive it says these things, never in the actual game story. The archive, I know every single time I bring up doubles aren't actually bad in the game story. People bring up, but in the archive it says they're bad. The archive isn't canon. That's the thing, the archive isn't actually canon because none of the stuff that is written in the archive ever happens or is mentioned anywhere or even hinted at or even alluded to in the actual game's story. So the archive basically not actually canon. Now, however, in the game, doubles with double syndrome are actually really goddamn scary because they now do have a downside. We actually have a goddamn downside for the very first time in 4 years that Magia record has existed. So Kaede gets double syndrome, they get fought. I probably already put the screens of the fight on screen here. The fight actually looks really cool if you watch it frame by frame. You have to watch it frame by frame because it goes by so goddamn fast. Like, the animation it's all there. It's all there. All they have to do, all the specific animator has to do is like linger on the very important keyframes for like twice as long. Like, just linger on the important key stuff twice as long and don't change anything else. In total, that makes the fight longer by maybe 10 seconds. And it does so much, because now 99% of people have no idea what the fuck is happening. But by doing what I just said, you probably have 99% of people understanding what's happening, which would be way better. Just, come on, give those frames more time. You don't have to keep racing between keyframes so hard. Come on. So yeah, what happens then to actually get back in text after all of my rambling? So Rina and Iroha, they connect, they have some cool stuff. They put Kaede in a net. They try to figure out what to actually do about Kaede. And also something to note is the design for the double syndrome and the double syndromes that we see later are also completely anime original, because those are designs that just don't happen in the game. Because double syndrome doesn't happen in the game, these designs are nowhere in the game. So, like I said in the last episode, which I think I said this in the last episode, we need to get artists to draw all of these double syndromes for all of these characters, because there's now so much more stuff to draw. Yay! So then Mitama and her girlfriend Momoko appear, and yeah, they're basically married in the game anyway, so they really are, like, they're basically married, okay? They appear, Mitama literally cards off Kaede. So Mitama does this little thing with the cloth where she swipes across. It's sort of a stylistic freedom. It's a bit of a freedom in stylistic choices that they've done here. So Mitama is themed, like, design-wise, after a magician. And so she has this little cloth that she swipes across. In battle, if you actually play the game, she, like, swipes across enemies to deal damage, basically. But putting stuff in balls in like glass balls isn't actually a thing that is like her part of her innate power. Her innate power, that like innate magic that Mitama has, is that she basically anything that she touches, she can like cause decay to make it crumble to dust, or like actually like this gray sludge thing. So that's Mitama's power. The power of decay is what her power is. However, Mitama has gotten taught by Livia, her teacher, about a lot of different types of magic, including how to coordinate people, how to adjust people. That's something that she learned from Livia. And I assume they basically saying here, okay, we're gonna take some freedoms and say that maybe she also learned some other magics that maybe can do this because why not? Okay, she can just do that because it looks cool and it fits to her design and her theme. But like, yeah, okay, I can understand. That's fine. I'm okay with that. I'm gonna give you that. She can just do that. Okay. So then we get to this room with all the different doppel syndromes in there, and almost all of these are for unknown Magoka. Now I know there have been some people trying to make sense of, oh, could this right here, there's one that's like a face of yarn, could the yarn face be the doppel of Kanoko? And it's possible that some of these are for Magoka that we know, but it's a lot of guessing with not that much to go on. Like there's very little to go on for most of these, and people are just throwing random stuff around that could maybe make sense. But here's the thing, what I think. I think that most of these really are just unknown magical girls that we don't know, mostly because they have really basic faces with really basic hairstyles that look like they're from like a background character. They look like background character hairstyles in most of these doppels, if they even have hair to begin with. But there are a few that we can very easily identify because it's like one-to-one the exact face, well, minus the mask of an actual character in the game. So on one hand you have doubles that look like they could be anything. On the other hand you have doubles that are like 100% exactly this character from the game. So building on top of that, these characters that we see that have double syndrome that we know from the game, here's the characters that we know. One is Natsuki. Natsuki, the cheerleader, we see her double syndrome. Secondly, we see Riko. Riko has her double right behind Mitama, which is sad because she's like 11 years old. She's really young. She's like a little kid who goes to kindergarten, and she's already a magic girl, and now she's got double syndrome. And she really liked Mitama as well. And Mitama really liked her. And now look at that. Come on. And you also have Konomi. Konomi is also right there, the flower girl. And of course now we have Kaede. Now you might be wondering, why is it important that it's exactly these four characters, right? That seems like a very random selection of characters. Well, this is actually a super deep reference, and I'm not kidding you guys, it's actually a super deep reference. There's these four random characters right here. So here's the thing, there are some challenge quests in the game, like 100 Evils quests if you're playing the game. I have to make sure that I mention all this stuff for anime-only viewers. So there are some really powerful challenge quests in the game called the 100 Evils quests. Also some other ones called the EX challenge quests. But yeah, there's some different quests in the game, and on some of these you will find a group of enemies that has in it Natsuki, Riko, Konomi, and, not Kaede, Mifuyu. So I've been wondering, okay, so Natsuki, Riko, and Konomi, those three are here, but we have Mifuyu instead of Kaede. What's the connection, right? Why these four characters in the game, and why now these four characters with Kaede instead in the anime? What's going on? So the reason why these four are sometimes in these really hard challenge quests is because of their names. They are the 4-season Magoka. Natsuki has Natsu in her name, which is the name for summer. We then have Riko Chiaki, her last name Chiaki, Aki, that's fall. We then have Konomi Haruna. Haruna is the last name, has Haru, spring. Then we have Mifuyu, Fuyu, that's winter. They're the 4-season Magokas. It's a word play. Of course, it's Japanese. Of course, it's a word play because everything in Japanese is a goddamn fucking word play. So that's why these four are sometimes brought together just because of their names. Like, oh, the 4th-season Magoka, haha. So why is it now these four in the anime with Kaede instead? Well, Kaede, her catchphrase that she sometimes says, I think it's like the very first thing we saw her say the very first time we saw her in like episode 2 or whatever, is Fuyu. Fuyu? Winter? There's another wordplay, right? She's the Fuyu for winter. So we have the 4-season magical girls right here. And this is why also I'm so confident that it's only these 4 characters, and all the other double syndromes that we see are just from unknown, unnamed characters, like background characters, basically. So yeah, they basically put the wordplay from the game into the anime with the 4-season Miko cast. I think that's funny. I think that's fucking funny. Speaking about funny, here's Mitama, who is about to rain on our parades, because Mitama is now saying that using too many doppels leads to a doppel syndrome. A doppel syndrome is basically where you lose control of your doppel and your doppel basically consumes you, and you fall into this dreamlike nightmare state or something that basically had at the basically the entire last episode, actually, where she was in this dream world. And I guess it's somewhat similar, not exactly the same, because Iroha's doppel is special, and that Iroha's doppel specializes in basically denying the truth. That's something that Iroha's doppel is perfectly good at, so that might be why she had that dream. But Iroha also later says this, that yeah, it's possible that all these characters are now dreaming about something. Maybe they're having dreams in that doppel, and that's basically what doppel syndrome is. You basically fall to your doppel and fall into like a coma while you're doppeled. Something very interesting to note about Mitama is that she's being very dodgy and very antagonistic here, which is weird. That's super out of character for Mitama, because, Mitama is very neutral, right? She's basically true neutral is she's supposed to be, but in the game she's actually somewhere between neutral and good, because she does care about the people. She does care about her her customers all over the city. Whenever a magical girl has like a medical emergency, they always bring her over to Mitama, and Mitama is like, oh no, what happened to this girl? I have to save her, and do magical girl surgery or whatever on this character to save them. Like, Mitama is basically a medic. She's basically a medic in a war zone, where it's like, okay, they're neutral, but they're just trying to save any life they can, but she does care about the lives of these people, at least in the game. For some reason here in the anime, it seems like she doesn't actually give a shit about these people. They're like, ah man, that's what happens. I told you guys, but you didn't listen to me, and now this is your fate. I don't know why they made Mitama low-key evil in the anime. That seems a bit out of character for Mitama. However, I think that I have an explanation for this. I have an explanation why Mitama is being so dodgy and evil, or like coming off as evil, because she's still basically neutral. She's just laying down the facts on the table, kind of like Cube actually does. I think I know why she's like this in the anime, and I think it's because the writers, or your showrunners in this case, are trying to get us to understand the viewpoint, the perspective that the Magius has on all of these characters, because Mitama is basically saying these characters are happy to be alive. If it wasn't for the Magius, they'd be dead. This is still better than being dead. And this is basically just the viewpoint of the Magius. Now, we don't have a Magius character in this room right now. We don't have Toka here, we don't have Nemo here, or Aina. Actually, Aina doesn't give a shit about this, but we don't have Toka here. So we need some character to give a comment about this, about Magius' viewpoint. And the only character in this room that can give us that viewpoint is Mitama. So I think the showrunners specifically made Mitama a little bit more evil, so that she can give us the viewpoint of the Magius and be like, hey, it's better than being dead, right? Even though Mitama herself probably doesn't actually believe that, because Mitama really does care about all of these characters, at least in the game. And I do think she actually does care about these characters also in the anime. Come on, especially Riko. Riko is like a little daughter, come on. Anyway, moving on from all of that, we then get to see, as Iroha talks about the dream that she's having, she has these images in the background as she's falling, and these images are actually the witch forms, not the doppels, they look different. The actual full witch forms of some characters. The first one is the witch form of Kaede, then of Reina, then of Momoko, then of Tsuruno, then of Felicia, then of Sana, and yes, that is a torture chair that in the game brutalizes people and is one of the, if not the only doppel that actually like throws blood around. I think it's like the only thing in the entire game that shows blood. Anyway, that's Sana's witch, and then Yachio's witch. We see all those rituals, and then we get this short little cut of the Magius sitting around the table being like, haha, the final fight is gonna start soon. Toka is super happy. Nemu doesn't seem to give a shit. Nemu's also another thing that's the interesting part. Nemu is already in a wheelchair. In the game, Nemu is not in a wheelchair, and at that point she isn't. At the end of chapter 10, Alina gets consumed by Enuwasa and gets mind controlled by Enuwasa and then tries to kill everyone. And then Nemu is like, well, I made that Uwasa, it's up to me to clean my mess up. And then she like sacrifices herself to stop Holy Alina. Instead, she doesn't actually die. Instead, she like survives but is bound to a wheelchair basically. She like loses her legs. Like doesn't actually lose them, but she like can't move her legs anymore after that. Which is weird. Can't you do something about that? The magic girls, yeah, not magic. Anyway. That's something that happens in the game, where at the very end of chapter 10, she gets put in a wheelchair, but now she's already in a wheelchair. I think it's better this way, because being like, I'm gonna kill myself to destroy this enemy person, like I'm gonna do a noble sacrifice. And then, oh, actually I survived, but now I'm in a wheelchair. That's weird. That's just weird. So instead going like, actually, she's in a wheelchair because she's almost dead, man. I think that's a better way of handling it, at least. And then we also have Alina right there, who's not really looking very interested, which is also weird, because she was super duper happy about Walpurgisnacht coming to town. And yeah, Walpurgisnacht is coming to town very soon, that's why it took her so happy. But Alina doesn't look happy at all. She looks kind of lost in thought, I guess. And I think the reason why this is because Alina is, of course, thinking about her girlfriend Karin. Of course she is. And that's the hope you guys enjoyed. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and I'll see you guys next time.